but she has graciously agreed to go ahead today and make the presentation to us, maybe on a little more informal basis.
Jody Perez, Beyond
Yeah.
Coal.
Thank you, Kathy. Good morning, everyone. As Kathy said, I have been here before wearing some different hats. A little bit of background about me. I was a little girl here in Indianapolis, growing up on the west side and then the south side. When my parents divorced, my mom moved us to Michigan. My dad stayed here. I moved away in 1973 and loved Indianapolis so much from coming back and visiting my dad that I came back to go to Butler. I have worked as a journalist. I've worked for the State Environmental Agency. I've worked for Indianapolis Department of Public Works. I've run a small nonprofit, Improving Kids' Environment, or Dr. Steve J. was on my board, and he's with IU School of Public Health and is here today to help me answer health-related questions about my topic today. And now I'm the Indiana representative for the Sierra Club's Beyond Coal campaign, which is a national campaign that focuses on trying to move our country beyond coal to clean energy. And my talk today is really about the health of our community. Before I start, I mentioned my dad. He ran a small business here for many years. Frank Watson was a friend of his, and I'm grateful to Frank for the friendship that he gave my dad in the last years of his life. And so I'm really glad to be here today, and because I love this city. I moved here, I made my home here, and I've been here for 32 years since I came back to go to Butler. Last Saturday we had this rally on Monument Circle, the Power Indy Forward rally. And I don't mind that Channel 16 isn't here today, because this rally will be playing on their government TV2 channel, if it isn't yet. 29-minute rally of community leaders who came out to say, it's time to power Indianapolis forward. Indianapolis Power and Light is preparing a 20-year energy plan for our community, how they're going to spend our money to generate electricity. And it's our opportunity to say, what kind of energy future do we want in this community? Right now we have one that's highly dependent on coal, and we think we can move in the direction of more clean energy more quickly than we are doing, because that's the future of our community. For those of you on the south side, you're very familiar with the Harding Street coal plant. That's a picture of it. It's right here if you're coming up from Bloomington along 37. It's those two big smokestacks right in front of you. And it is, there's 3 different coal-fired units there. IPL is converting 2 of them to natural gas, but the biggest one, 400 megawatt, Unit 7 it's called, is they're planning to continue burning coal in that unit for at least the next 20 years under their current plan, so until 2034 or longer. So this is an opportunity for us to say what we would like them to do. It is the #1 polluter in Marion County by almost any measure. We looked at the toxic release inventory that US EPA puts out. This is numbers self-reported by industry to EPA, and this chart shows from 2000 to 2012 all the toxic releases by industry in Marion County. The red bar is the Harding Street coal plant, and you can see that it hasn't gone down really since 2000. Other industrial toxic emissions have gone down. That's because some of them have shut down, but those that are still operating, like Rolls-Royce, have reduced their emissions. The reason that we have a lot of toxic emissions from that plant is because coal contains a lot of toxins, and burning coal sends those toxins into our community. This is a combination of air and water and land releases. So IPL will say, we've released, this pollutant, sulfur dioxide, by, such and such percent since 2000. Or we are going to be reducing our mercury emissions under these new projects that we're paying for this year. That doesn't eliminate the pollution. It transfers the pollution from the air to the water and the land. By burning coal, it doesn't magically disappear because they put pollution controls on the smokestacks. They're capturing that pollution and just transferring it elsewhere. So this is a true story of toxic emissions into our community. Taking a look at one pollutant, sulfur dioxide, and Steve knows more about this than I do, but this is a pollutant that's regulated by EPA because it is harmful to our health. Sulfur dioxide emissions, even short-term exposures to high levels of sulfur dioxide, will constrict your breathing, will lead to more asthma attacks, Longer-term exposures can really exacerbate people with asthma. It's especially dangerous to the most vulnerable populations, children, people with asthma or COPD, the elderly. These yellow townships are townships that do not meet the new EPA standard for sulfur dioxide, which is a 1-hour standard that's meant to measure that kind of, peak 1-hour exposure. The red dots are IPL-owned power plants. So in Morgan County, there's a plant in Martinsville that burns coal. There's 2 townships down there that don't meet the SO2 standard. In Marion County, we have Wayne, Center, and Perry townships that all do not meet that standard. And it's because of the IPL coal plant. It emits about 99% of the sulfur dioxide emissions in Marion County. So there's no question where the sulfur dioxide is coming from. The downtown Perry K plant that Citizens Energy owns is no longer burning coal as of last month. It was the second highest source of SO2 in Marion County. It's not going to be emitting SO2 anymore. We still have the Harding Street plant as the biggest source of SO2. And as I said, it's regulated by EPA. Sulfur dioxide comes from coal that has a lot of sulfur in it. And when you burn coal, it creates sulfur dioxide. I was filling up gas at a gas station on Southport Road a couple weeks ago. You could smell the sulfur in the air. You could see an orange tinge. Those of you on the south side know what I'm talking about. And that breathing that in is dangerous for people's health. I've worked in the Martindale-Brightwood neighborhood when I was at Improving Kids Environment, and this was a chart that the Marion County Health Department prepared for us when we were working on a project there, looking at asthma-related emergency department visits in Marion County for a 5-year period. Where are there higher rates of asthma emergency department visits? And these are folks who are having trouble managing their asthma, so they end up in the emergency room. The pollution, the air pollution from the plant tends to go in a northeasterly direction. I'm not saying that the plant is causing these higher rates, but if you were going to put a coal-fired power plant someplace, this would be the worst place to put it, downwind of neighborhoods that already have trouble handling their asthma, and then people are ending up in the emergency room. So the red zip codes 46218 and 46226, where Martindale-Brightwood is right here, are the 2 worst zip codes in terms of people having to try to manage their asthma. So having a power plant downwind of those neighborhoods is especially a problem.
Now, is that just a raw number, the number of visits, or is it correlated to the population density? Or
it is, I believe it was rates based on per like 10,000 population or something like that. Yeah, it wasn't numbers. It wasn't raw numbers. Okay, so and that was a 5-year period in the not too distant past. And this is what it amounts to is poor air quality days. We've had 2 this winter. One was the day before Valentine's Day, when the city and Improving Kids Environment put out an air quality alert that said air quality today is unhealthy, not just for sensitive groups like children and the elderly and people with asthma, but for the entire population. And that day, there was a big red blob over Indiana on airnow.gov, which is a government website where you can go and look what's today's air quality like. So I pulled this up and I captured it that day because it showed that the air pollution in Indiana had really concentrated and was unhealthy. There was one of those days of there wasn't a lot of wind, the pollution from power plants, from people burning wood because it was the middle of winter, and from cars, it all kind of combines together. And so this was a day in which we had high particulate levels, and that's a real problem in the winter. In the summer we hear about ozone, in the winter it's particles. And in that day going downtown, I could see, you can see the air quality. It's very visible. The thing to remember about air pollution, we can't escape it. Unlike water and soil pollution where you can avoid it, we all go outside, we all breathe that air. And so American Lung Association has given Indianapolis a grade of F for soot pollution because of these kinds of days and the problems that we have. Clean Air Task Force is a science-based organization that calculates for different coal-fired power plants around the country. numbers, again, because we're all exposed to air pollution, so they estimate the annual impact of the Harding Street plant in our area is 76 premature deaths, people who didn't have to die, 120 heart attacks, 55 hospitalizations, 1,300 asthma attacks attributed to that plant. And then we have a lot of coal plants in Indiana. These black dots all represent different coal plants that, the larger ones are greater than 75 premature deaths a year attributable to the air pollution from those plants. It's also the largest source of carbon dioxide, and CO2 is an air pollutant that is the #1 cause of climate disruption and climate change. So those of you concerned about our climate and what's happening globally, this red bar, this was a Hestia project that was completed in 2012 by Arizona State. They did kind of a pilot project in Indianapolis, so we're one of the few cities that has this kind of information. They looked at CO2 emissions by different sources. This red bar right here is the Harding Street coal-fired power plant, like the airport is out here. But if you look at it from this perspective, you can see that coal plant is off the charts, and that's why it's important, if we're concerned about climate change, to look at coal-fired power plants. There are alternatives to burning coal to generate electricity. And when there are so many alternatives out there, we need to start moving in that direction. Another example of what comes out of smokestacks of a coal-fired power plant is mercury. There's mercury in the coal. When you burn the coal, the mercury comes out. This was a project that Dr. Gabe Filippelli at IUPUI did, where he did soil sampling for mercury around the community, and then he didn't sample every single yard, but he used what he had found to kind of model where the mercury has fallen and is higher levels in the soil, so that these blue areas out here would be 23 parts per billion, and the redder areas are 30 times more than you would find in the background. So you see the plant is here, and the fallout is affecting as far north as Broad Ripple and out to Lawrence and Speedway, and certainly the downtown area. Mercury is a potent neurotoxin. We get exposed to it mostly through fish, and you can look at just about every stream in Indiana has a fish consumption advisory that says women and young children should not be eating fish caught in those streams. How many poor people who rely on fish as food know this? None of them, probably. Because the most dangerous exposure time to mercury is when a child is in the womb. There's a special concern because their brain is developing. Those young, it's one thing I learned at Improving Kids' Environment, that when our brains are developing, exposure to mercury can really interrupt those key development times.